we're going to look at now is if we are writing an equation and all we are given is multiple points on a graph, not in a table, but just points on a graph, all right? So first let's look at what a data point is. It's a value for x and y that comes from the value of x being affected by the equation and giving us a value for y, all right? So let's say that we have the 2 points, 7, 5, and 2, 12, okay? 2, 15. Let's use 2, 15. All right? So we have the points 7, 5, and 2, 15. And we want to be able to use an equation and find out, or we want to be able to find out what the equation is that would give us these 2 points. All right? This is multi-step. This takes a couple different equations. So first I want to look at the first equation we're going to need, which is called our slope formula. This formula is going to help us find what the slope of the line that goes through these 2 points is. And from there we can move on and see if we can find the full equation. All right, so let's write down our slope formula. We know that m is slope, and that our slope formula says that our y2 minus our y1 over our x2 minus our x1. And if you look at this graph, or you look at this formula, it kind of makes sense. We know that on a graph, my y values go up and down, correct? So that would be our rise, correct? And our x values go to the left and right. So our run, which we covered in our last video. So this actually is a numerical representation of rise over run. So if that makes a little bit of sense to you and kind of helps you understand what we're doing here. All right? So the first thing that we need to be able to do to use this formula is we need to label our points. All right? We need to label our first point 1 and our second point 2. It helps me, and I have found that it helps to label your x and y value. All right? So in this one, this is xy. This is xy. And what this allows us to do is as we fill out our table, we can cancel out what we've already used, right? So let's start to fill this out and see what happens, okay? So our equation starts with y2. So we look over here. That tells us that we are looking for the y value in our second point. So we say y2, which is 15. All right? Then it says subtract, all right? We're going to subtract every time, follow the equation, y1, so the y value in our first point, which is 5. All right? Then we have our division sign, and we say x2, x value in our second point, which is 2, minus our x1, the x value in our first point, 7. So now let's just work this doing the math. 15 minus 5 is 10. 2 minus 7 gives us -5. So our slope is 10 over -5. Well, we know that we can reduce this. 5 goes into 5 once and goes into 10 twice, but we have a negative. So this means that my answer would be reduced to -2 over 1 or -2. So the slope of the line that passes through these 2 points would be -2. If we were writing an equation, we would start with y equals -2x plus or minus something. And we're not quite to the point where we can find this yet. So I want to practice another one of these. Let's just look at one more. All right, let's look at one more. Let's say that we have the plot point 7, -11, and we have the point -2, -20. All right? So again, we're just going to quickly fill in our equation. All right? Let's label our points 1 and 2. XY xy. Again, this is a plug and chug formula. It's not super difficult, especially if we will label our points and get used to labeling them the same every single time. It's almost impossible to get confused. It's just follow directions, okay? So y2, our y2 is -20. All right? And then we're going to minus y1, which is -11. Now, we know that from integers and our negative rules that if we subtract a negative, if these two negatives are right next to each other, there's nothing between them, that subtracting a negative is the same thing as adding, correct? So, we in fact don't even have to write minus negative. But if you're using a calculator, you're not sure of your negative rules, if you put -20 minus -11, it will give you the same answer as -20 plus 11. Your calculator will do it correctly if you're not sure. Second, x2, -2, minus x1, which is 7, minus 7. So let's look. -20 plus 11 is -9. -2 minus 7 is -9. Again, my negative rules that say that when a negative is divided by a negative, we get a positive. So I know our answer is going to be positive. 9 over 9 is 1 whole. So my slope would be 1. So y equals 1x plus or minus something. And again, we've talked about this in several videos, but the 1 is not necessary. So this could be y equals x plus or minus something. So next time we will look at how to take our slope and one of these points and find our full equation. All right, and then we'll do both together, starting with 2 points and going all the way through our entire process. All right, thank you.